10 students. I threw together this video very quickly so I could go over this mini lesson with you about your parenthetical citations. As you can see at the top, right, citations are how you give credit to various sources that you use to support your argument. You already do that in your essays, right? You've been writing the author's last name and a page number every time you've used a quote. But now you're going to have multiple sources in the research project that you're working on, and you'll need to make sure that you cite them as you go so that your readers can understand them clearly and don't get lost. Right? These are the citations that go inside your essay or your research project after every quote, every paraphrase, when you take the original words and reduce it to your own words and kind of synthesize it, or if you're using a specific statistic from a source. If you take a look at it, right, the English 10 team put together this resource to kind of make it easier for you, no matter what your situation is, to figure out how your citation is supposed to look. So if you look at the top one, right, if you have a quote or a paraphrase that does have an author and a page number, then you would just put the author's last name and the page number in parentheses, just like this, right? Sterin is the author's last name, 28 is the page number where the quote came from. Sometimes you'll come across information that doesn't have a page number. Maybe you're working from a website, etc. In that case, if you have the information, you just give the author's last name, like this one, right? Sterin. No page number, no nothing at all, just like that. If you have, or you're using a quote that doesn't have an author, right? The next thing that you would do, and this is possible depending on the different types of sources that you pull from, what you're supposed to do is put in the title of the resource that you got it from, like the article, for example, in quotation marks, and then give a page number if it's possible, right? If the title ends up being really long, you just use the first 3 words of the title. So for example, right, Poodles is the title of this article that we're making up, and the quote that I took from that came from page 28 of that article. Again, the article didn't have an author, but I still need to show where I got the information from, so that's where this comes in. There will be also other times where you have quotes that are coming from a place that doesn't have an author, right? Because maybe the source that you're looking at was written by an editing team, right? There's no one author, it's just kind of a team of people. And sometimes it doesn't have a page number either. In those instances, you just use the title in quotation marks, just like we talked about before, right? If there is no page number, you just don't include it. So in this case, we're pretending that same article, Poodles, didn't have a page numbers, right? So it would just be that. Then it is possible that you'll have quotes that are coming from a source that has more than one author, like 2 or more. In that case, what you do is you list the last names of both authors with the word "and" in between, and then a page number if it's possible. So for example, like Hofmeister and Weinstein, 28. Usually these names are arranged alphabetically, right? So that's why Hofmeister comes before Weinstein. But if you see anywhere within your article that it's done differently for some other reason, just go with the order that that's given. All right, then the last one is probably the most tricky, but some of you have already done this before. This is when you have a quote within a quote. So let's pretend you're reading an article written by one person, and in that article they reference somebody else. In that case, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to use the last name of the speaker quoted in, and then the last name of the author of the article that you got it from, and then a page number. So for example, and you use this QTD period, right, to abbreviate quoted. So Burrell quoted in Sterin 28. Right? Sterin is the author of the article that you found, but they are quoting this person, Burrell. Right? That's why it says Burrell quoted in Sterin. Again, this chart is supposed to make it easier for you, no matter which of these situations you come across, right? You'll know exactly what your citation is supposed to look like. With that being said, there are some common errors that you need to make sure that you avoid. I would suggest that you write these on the back of this sheet of paper or down at the bottom if you have some space before we get to the practice. The first common error is you should only be using the author's last name. Notice how in this one it says Ray Smith 23, right? I don't need Ray. I don't need the author's first name, just the last name and the page number. The second common error is people tend to throw in a comma between the author's last name and a page number, but you don't need that at all. Just put Smith, hit the space bar, and then 23, right? There's no need to put a comma in there. That means something completely different down the lane, and we'll talk about that if the situation comes up. The third and probably the most common error is you don't need to repeat a period at the end of your selected quote and at the end of your sentence, right? You only need the period here after the citation. Notice how it's in the end, period, Smith 23, period. I don't want to say the word period twice, right? So we just cross out this one, and this is all that you would need. This is only true if like the sentence ends in a period and your sentence ends in a period, right? If the quote that you were pulling from ended in a exclamation point or in a question mark, yes, you would still leave that ending punctuation, and your sentence where you're when you're done quoting it still ends with a period. Right? The idea is that you're just not repeating yourself. All right. Now, at the bottom of your sheet, you have 5 different scenarios. I'd like you to look through these scenarios, look at the key that you have above you, right? I can't go back, can I? Wait, hold on. There we go. Look at the key and the legend that you have above you, look at the different situations, and take the next 5 minutes and write out what would the parenthetical citation be like on the right-hand side. Please do that now. I will check in with you with the answers after the timer runs out. Okay, so if you follow along with me, I'd like to go over the answers to these. So for the first one, we have an author, Terry Brown, and the quote came from page 4. I've got the author's name and a page number, so I would need to put Brown 4 as my citation. For the second one, I don't have the author's name. I do have the title, and the quote comes from page E6. Looking at this title, right, 3 teenagers go missing after a hiking trip, that's way too long. And the directions said that I'm supposed to shorten that to just the first 3 words of the title, right? So in quotation mark, 3 teenagers go, E6, right? Give me the title because I don't have the author's name, and because it's long, I just reduce it to those first 3 words and then the page number that's given. In this case, it's an odd one, right? E6. All right, for the next one, I've got the author's name, I've got a quote within a quote, and the title of the article is Poodle's Rule with no page number. Again, the quote within the quote, right? Jack Meridew is being quoted in Jennifer Patel's article, so I would say Meridew quoted in Patel. Right? I don't need to give the title of the article, I just need this part. Right? This will be enough. For the fourth one, Bob Blob wrote an article called English is Great, and taking a quote from page 400, it would just be Blob 400. All right, the last one, again, no author. I do have the title of the article that I'm pulling the quote from, but I don't have a page number, so the directions say that I just use, I just use the article's name, right, in quotation marks to show where it came from. Okay, I hope you found this helpful. With the remaining time in class, sorry, my computer's lagging. With the remaining time in class, you should be working on one of 2 things. You could either be editing or extending your narrative that you wrote last week on Friday. Even if you do not want to add to it, you're going to need to resubmit it. I had to hand back everybody's stuff to them so that you all could go back and manipulate them. So if you decide that you're not going to make any changes, that's completely fine, right? Just hit the submit button again for me so that I can see that you're done. If you are going to make changes, use the steps for success on the right-hand side of the screen, right? The sub will have those projected for you. And if you're not working on that, you could be using your time in class to work on your day 2 reading and analysis questions for your choice text. Again, thank you for watching the video. If you have any questions, please let me know. Send me an email and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can.